All right, so now you are prepared to get started with this super exciting process of challenging your insurance company. Now, we're assuming that this is something not in your formulary, something that's not covered, and maybe you wrote a prior authorization, maybe you didn't. I recommend, if it's something that you know is listed as experimental and is never covered, it is going to get rejected. Now, what I'm going to go through is a little list of things, like kind of little tips and tricks that you might try in order to see if you can win before you even get started. And sometimes these things really do work. So one thing that can sometimes be incredibly effective is if, for example, you happen to live somewhere like where I do. I live in Madison, Wisconsin, and we have a lot of research here on prolotherapy. And we particularly have this great doctor here who is a main author of a lot of the research. Now, in some places he has a lot of pull and his word means a lot, and some places it doesn't. It just really depends. There are doctors like him around the world who are doing this kind of research. I know for platelet-rich plasma and stem cell there are doctors, and I don't know if they have even tried to do any of this stuff, but there are some really well-respected doctors. And if you have doctors like that in your area, one thing that they can try, particularly if you have a slightly more open insurance company that allows more open dialogue, you can see if that expert in your area, especially if there's somebody who does accept insurance and accepts your insurance, can try giving somebody that they may know in that insurance company a call to talk to that person at the insurance company informally. And this part is important. Talking about you on your behalf about what is called a one-time exception to coverage. Now, what this means is not that you're only going to get the procedure one time. It means that you are being considered as a single case study, and that they're not asking the insurance company to change their policy or their formulary. They're asking them to look at you as an individual and your case as an individual case, and to say, in this one case, it's going to make more sense for us to pay for this person to get an exception for this procedure than it would to make them to continue to jump through all of these extra hoops that are going to cost us a bunch of extra money. And this is again where that idea of leverage, which we're going to talk about again, is going to come into play. But a good doctor who understands these concepts and who has a good relationship and a good reputation can sometimes, with a phone call, get these things covered. But they especially have better luck with it if you already have a good relationship with your insurance company. Another thing that you may want to do is just get as much supporting documentation from as many experts as possible who have these good reputations. Those supporting documents, like at one point I did mention a surgeon. I have a surgeon who happens to have an amazing reputation, and when he decided to change sides, so to speak, and decided to say, I no longer recommend surgery for this patient, I recommend regenerative medicine because I think surgery is harmful for this patient, that had a lot of impact. And so getting those kinds of recommendations from sports medicine doctors, from surgeons, from people who are really advanced in the field, are the kinds of things that can really make higher up people in insurance companies rethink what they're doing. Now, something you can do if you feel savvy on the phone, or if you have an advocate or a family member who has permission to speak on your behalf, who's savvy on the phone, because let's face it, not everybody is a health advocate. I understand this. But you can get permission for other people to speak on your behalf. And if you have a family member who's better at talking on the phone than you are and doesn't have social anxiety and is really good at being calm on the phone, then they could call to talk informally to people. Now, a few pieces of advice on this is that you want to call to talk about getting prior authorizations, but you do not want to talk to their call center. You do not want to talk to the people in their normal process. You want to make sure that you're talking to, at worst, a supervisor. But if you can, there are different things like medical management teams. There are patient advocates who work at higher levels of prior authorizations, and sometimes they're even outside, like they're different management teams that are slightly separate from the insurance company. And these are the people that you can talk to, and if you can get them on the right day, you can have a candid and honest conversation with them about how you're struggling, what your situation is like, all of the things that you've gone through. And one of the best things that you can do is drop in hints about how much money all of this is costing and how much time you're spending, because those things really get the wheels turning for them, especially if they're the kind of person with power, about, gosh, I could save the insurance company money, and won't that look good for me? Again, remember the word leverage. This is coming in. This is going to come in. But just having a candid conversation. It is a good time to be vulnerable. It's a good time to be honest. Crying without getting too upset or without getting angry is perfectly acceptable during this conversation. Because let's be honest, we probably have often gotten to that place where we're at the end of our rope, and it's hard, and we're struggling, and we've talked to so many people, and we're exhausted. And a lot of times we want to be really stoic and really professional, and sometimes that's not the best way to get the help that we need. Sometimes we need to reach out to the humanity in these people, and they are not evil people. A lot of them are honestly just doing their jobs. And sometimes getting in touch with that person, human to human. One of the things that my mom sometimes likes to do is to talk to somebody mother to mother about her daughter, and that sometimes works. You know, sometimes you really can, not always, but sometimes you really can touch these people on a human level, and you reach the right person on the right day, and you can suddenly get a 180 on your case. And that is the ideal situation. I'm not saying it's going to help in every circumstance, but I had it happen one time on a day when I was really not expecting it to, and it changed my life. And that was only one time that it happened, but it was one time that it was critical, and it made a big difference for me. So don't underestimate the power of humanity at times. When people do have the power to help and they see someone in need, sometimes they do. And a lot of times this is just about getting the right person on the right day, and one good phone call can save you, honestly, months or even years of anguish. But just some advice on talking to this person: if you do get that right person on that right day, try to stay as positive as possible in your interactions with them. In talking to them, there's this idea or this concept of people are what you say they are. If you get somebody on the phone and you say, I know you're all jerks, that person's probably going to be a jerk to you. If you say you're all soulless, they're probably going to act soulless to you. If you say, I've heard that you are the person to talk to because you are really kind. Sometimes that brings out the best in people. So don't underestimate how you can shape people by how you speak with them and what you might be able to bring out of somebody just by the way you talk to them. Anything that's going right, give them credit for. Anything that's going wrong in the conversation, avoid blaming them for. Use words like, I know that this isn't within your control. You want to make sure that whatever you do, that this phone call, whether it helps you or not, that it ends on a positive note, because it is likely that you will have to interact with this person again. And then if it seems as if it's not going your way, or if the person's stonewalling in some way, then use whatever excuse you have to get off the phone. Chances are you probably will be in pain, or you will be sick, or if it's somebody else calling on your behalf, you can be in pain or be sick and have them get off the phone. Have a plan to get off the phone. Have an exit strategy for getting off the phone if it's not going well. Because you don't want to stay on the phone and then end up regretting it and end up throwing the phone across the room and breaking the phone, because that serves nobody. You want to make sure that this phone call goes well. If it goes well, you win. If it goes badly, no one wins. So it's something that's worth giving a chance, because it could get you leaps and bounds ahead, but it's something that you could hurt yourself if you aren't prepared for it. So if it goes well, if you get not even just the best case scenario, but if you have a good conversation and it sounds like there's even a maybe, get all of this person's contact information, ask them if it's okay if you keep them on your list. Give that contact information to your doctor. Have that person be the primary point of contact to your doctor. If you can get a primary first name basis contact person in your insurance company for your doctor, that is one of the best things that you can definitely have happen for you, and that can really change things an awful lot for you. And so then there's just a few things before you really launch into the appeal that you're going to want to do. You're going to want to get information on the following and gather some documentation. So this is what you're going to really want to make sure you know really well. The insurance's exception to coverage and prior authorization policy, how it works. Make sure you have that right. You want to know what your rights are as a patient with regard to that coverage and the appeals, and what that full process is. You want to know what the company's responsibilities with authorization and appeals are. What rules do they have to follow? What are the timelines and the policies for making decisions and are deciding an appeal and making a decision? And you have to know all of these, and you have to be ready for them, and you need to keep on their timelines too, because sometimes these turnovers can be as short as like 72 hours, and you really need to be ready for those types of things. You want to know what the process is for authorizations and appeals at every level. So you want to know what they are at the very bottom, from the time when the doctor writes in the prior authorization to when you appeal it possibly internally, your options to appeal it externally. For an external review, there's different types of internal appeals. There can be informal versus formal. There can also be national reviews, which are a lot higher and take a little bit longer, but you want to know what all of those are, and that's why you needed to do all of that preparation work in advance, because like I said, these things often have short timelines, and you want all of this stuff to be ready. The less ready you are, the more disadvantage you're going to have in getting ready. The more prepared you are, the more at a disadvantage they're going to be. And then you're going to want to ask the patient advocate, advisor, compliance officer, medical management team, or supervisor at your insurance company about the ranges and estimates of the fastest, times that these things get done, and the longest that they can take by policy or law. So you just really want to be prepared for all of those things. So once you have all of that in place, then you're ready for the next step, which will be our next video, which is actually launching the appeal. You guys ready? This is really exciting stuff.